All right, in this video, I'll be showing you how to use the procedural content generation tool in Unreal Engine 5. It is a super powerful tool to create dynamic landscapes that move to your command. You can create volumes, you can create splines that intersect one another, that dynamically change what happens within a spline, meaning I can create content within a spline boundary. I can create a spline that's not looped. I could generate a path with meshes on top of the path, but also just a path that subtracts from the spline that's being intersected with, as you're seeing here. I could have a spline intersect a volume full of trees. These trees are contained within this volume. And if I move the volume, the trees move as well. The splines remain where they are. You can also put the trees on top of the splines. The way I have it set is that it's going to subtract it from the trees. So you can get a very, very dynamic and quick way of producing landscape environments. And these splines, they're flowing along the landscape as well. So I'll show you how to do that. Overall, it's pretty powerful and we'll jump right into it. So now I've emptied everything out and we are fresh. We got some hills and whatnot. And so the first thing you want to do is enable the PCG. So you want to go to plugins. You want to type in PCG. That is not even close to PCG. There we go. Procedural Content Generation Framework. You want to just turn this on. And if you don't have it turned on, you're probably going to have to restart your Unreal Engine. So once you do that, you probably want to create a folder called PCG. And if I call it PSG, my bad, that's my dyslexia or whatever kicking in. But PCG, and you want to go ahead and right click. Okay, and you'll have a PCG now enabled for you, and click the graph over here. And I'm going to name this test, name it whatever you want, and double click that. Okay, and that'll open up your graph node editor, or whatever you want to call that. And I'm just going to move this to the side. What you want to do is you need to drag this little guy and instantiate it into the file. And there we go. We got a big volume right here. And you'll notice in the outliner, you have test enabled, right? So if I turn that off, it'll go away, turn back on. Okay, don't mind this grass over here. That's just manual grass. Don't worry about that guy. So if you come down here, you should be able to generate that. So I'm just going to generate it. Why not? I'm just going to start it. Okay, so in input, you have input and output. So what I want to do is generate foliage on this landscape. And so you want it to, I guess, relate to landscape. So that's why I'm going to drag this node out somewhere. Where am I dragging it to? Well, I need a sampler of some sort. Usually you need some sort of sampler. So I'm going to click the surface sampler. We'll use spline sampler later when we use splines. But right now, I'm just going to drag this guy right here. Okay, you just have to drag the node point out. If you want to disconnect it, you just hold Alt and click and you'll disconnect it. From here, I think you could just press on your keyboard. Not here. If you actually select on top and hit D, that will just type in D. I do that all the time. That's annoying. You just want to select the node and press D, and that will turn on the debug mode. The debug mode will be indicated with this white dot, and I'll just show you all the little node points that will be generated. Okay, so this is really big. Okay, if you want to change it, you'll just come up here and you'll change the point extent. Let's go ahead and change this to, let's call it 10 by 10 by 10. Okay, so these little cubes are much smaller, and so now we're dispersed across the region like that. If you want more of them, you just come over here to where it says 0.1 in the points per square meter. I'm going to change this to, I think, 1. Let's see. Okay, that's a lot. I'm actually going to go back and change it to 0.1. I'm going to move this up to actually 30 because I don't want a lot. You know, I don't want, actually, you know what? I'll be putting trees in this eventually. So I'm just going to go ahead and just leave this pretty big. That's fine for now, but that's how you change it if you need it. So the next thing you want to do is add a transform points right here. This is spatial. And so I'm just going to drag this in here. I want to see what's going on here. I want to debug this. So I'm going to go back to surface sampler, click D to turn it off. Now I'm going to go to transfer points, turn D to turn on. Now look, it should look exactly the same because I haven't edited anything. So if you look over here, this is my properties. I'm going to start here, scale max. I'm going to change this to 3. Okay, my God, that's a lot. Change this to call this 0.5. I'm going to change this to 2. And so you'll see that you have varying sizes, right? Varying sizes over here. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to type in static mesh spawner. Whoa. That one right there. Okay, I'm just going to drag this here. This one gets a little bit confusing. So if you select into it, you need to find mesh entries. It says 0 array elements, meaning there's no items within this component. Expand the plus sign and you'll get 1 item. That's index 0. Okay, and so expand the index, and then there'll be another thing you need to expand called descriptor. I know it's a lot of things nested in it. It's kind of confusing. But then you'll have static meshes. So you could select stuff. So I could find, I don't know, a cone, for example. And if I turn off the debugger at transform points, just by clicking D, you'll see I have a bunch of cones that are spawned in. Great. And they're coming at different sizes. And that's because the transform point is going from 0.5 to 2. If I make this call it 4, you know, it's getting much bigger. Okay. Now, if I wanted to add trees and not these little cones, I just come back to static meshes And in here, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna find me in my content folder. I have some of these trees. Go ahead and select these guys. This guy right here, I'm just gonna replace the cone with this guy, and I have a bunch of trees. Look at that. And they're really big, and it's really packed. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna go to transform points. I'm gonna move this down to, let's call it 2, so that I have the same amount, but it's way more packed. Now, if I wanted to de-densify it, for example, you're gonna wanna add some noise and a dense filter. That's kind of what I've found as kind of the best thing to do. So I'll go ahead and type attribute noise, and from attribute noise, I'm gonna move the transform points. That's gonna come here. I'm gonna disconnect this real quick so we can understand what's going on. Click attribute noise, debug it with D, okay? And so noise min and max, if I move this up and down, it's just kind of changing some of these properties. It seems not to really do anything until you actually put the filter, but it's kind of changing the values of these. You can see that the change of color, that's going to mean something when we go to the density filter. It's going to end up picking what gets removed and what doesn't get removed. So I'm going to actually undo that, so we just keep it with the standard, and then type density filter right here, and I'm going to plug this in here. Click D to undebug that, and I want to debug this. And so you can see that certain colors here, I guess the dark ones, got removed. Okay, it's just kind of, I guess, culling it. And so it's just subtracting the dark ones. And so if you change that kind of range over here, turn that off, you change the range and the attribute noise, it's going to go ahead and cull and delete those. So in density filter, you can also have a lower and upper bound, and that's also going to change. I guess the lower bound is the lighter color, upper bound, maybe upper bound is the darker color. I don't know. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying. There's colors and there's things that are being deleted based off those colors. That's how that's working. Anyway, turning it off. And then here we select that, and you can notice that now it's not as dense. Okay, so now I can come in here now once everything is added in there, and I'm going to go ahead and go to density filter. I'm just going to move this up and down, see what it does. Okay, so that's kind of nice. One thing that you kind of want to do is, so if I come up here and look up top, everything just kind of looks exactly the same, besides the fact that it's kind of shrunk. So if I go back to transform points, I can go to rotation max. See, I'm just going to put like, I don't know, 250 of 360. So now things are moving around. Another thing you could do is you can get the trees not to be so straight, so they could be tilted a little bit. So I'm going to change this to, I don't know, call it 15. Maybe that's extreme. Let's call it 6 or something. I'm gonna also change this to, let's call it 4, so slightly tilted. And let me go to a hill or something. Right here. You'll see these trees. They're kind of tilted, like, you know, they're growing sideways. If you come up to absolute rotation, that should fix them right up. And you'll notice that some of these trees, they're slightly above the ground. Again, to fix that, you'll just go ahead and drop min and max offset. So it drops. Whoa, that's a little bit too much. 700 is a little bit too much. You don't want to do that. Minus 20 is fine, and you'll see that these guys go into the ground. And yeah, so like now we have a nice sparse little forest grove, whatever you want to call it. It's not quite a forest, but this is procedurally generated. So if I go ahead and I move this, this is just following whatever is within this boundary. And so this is respecting that boundary box. And so let's move on to creating a spline. Okay, now you could use the same exact file if you want them to respond to one another. In this case, I will. I want the spline I create to be subtracted from this volume. Otherwise, I'd probably recommend them being separate, but I know I want them to respond, so I'm gonna keep them in the same graph node. Okay, so what you'll do, come down to modeling. Okay, so I want to create a spline, draw a spline. You could do it using a blueprint, but this is just quicker and easier. So I'm just gonna go ahead and draw a spline. You can hold down shift to kind of get this Bezier curve or whatever you wanna call this. And I'm just gonna draw some sort of ellipsoid thing. Now, I'm not gonna connect it. You can just come up here and click loop to connect it. There's also gonna be a parameter once you create it to turn this on and off. I'm just gonna turn it on right now. Click accept. And what's important to do now, if you find it, it's spline actor. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to name anything. I'm just going to keep it spline actor because I'm lazy. And I'm going to search here for a property called tag, and I'm going to move this here. And so you'll see there's a tag here. There's 0 array element. So again, you need to click plus to get an element. And I'm going to name this, let's call this loop because it is a loop. You got to remember what it is because you have to type it into this graph node. Once that's named, I'm going to come up here, and similarly, we need an input. Now, we're not going to use an input that's found in the level like the landscape or anything like that. I have to kind of find it. So I'm just going to type spline because we know we're dealing with splines. And so you don't have that many things that are splines. You have these 3 elements. So spline data is what I'm going to want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click this. Basically, I want to set it to the tag of loop, right? And so I'm not seeing it. So you have to just come up here to actor filter, and I'm going to change this to all world actors. Okay, and then from here, I'm gonna go ahead and find this actor selection tag. So this is where it is. It says none right now, so it's not gonna find it. And you get this warning, right? Because it doesn't know what it's kind of being tagged to. And so I'm just gonna type loop. All right, click tab, and then there we go. The warning is gone, and it should know what it is. Okay, from here, I'm gonna need a sampler again, but not a surface sampler. We're gonna need a spline sampler. Plug that bad boy in right there. And so here, you'll have a few properties. Okay, right now we're set on spline. So if I turn this on, whoops, man, I typed D again. Turn on the debug by clicking D, and you'll notice that there are some surfaces merging, I believe. Maybe I'm just tripping. Actually, I am tripping. I don't see anything. And the reason for that is you need to turn on unbound. And what that means is now you'll see it. Now you have those kind of planes that I was talking about. But if it's not intersecting this volume, remember, this was the PCG volume we inserted. If you don't have that intersect, if this is not intersected or within the bounds, it's not going to pick up anything. I'm going to turn this on to from on spline to on interior because I want to kind of fill up the interior. And if I unselect unbound, for example, it won't do anything because again, it's not within that volume. But you can kind of override that by checking unbound. You should just test to see if this is moving. It is moving. I don't know why it's acting weird. Part of the reason it's acting weird is because there's a hill. And so because it's a spline, it's not flowing on top of the landscape because it hasn't yet responded to the landscape. In the previous example, that surface sampler is being plugged into the landscape. So we need to do something similar. And so I'm going to go ahead and type projection. This is going to go into here. Actually, what am I going to do? There we go. So all I did is I placed a projection, and what the projection is doing is it's finding the information about the landscape as the surface sampler did. And so you're projecting this information of the spline onto the landscape surface, and then you get spline sampler. Okay, so that's all that's doing. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Next up, we will go ahead and do the same thing we did before. We'll add a transform point. We'll plug this in, turn this debug off, turn this on, and then we're going to go ahead and change the min max to, let's call it 0.3. Whoops, that didn't change anything. 0.3. Change this to 0.7. And so you'll see that things are nested in here. Okay, so now you have that grid. And if you want to change the density of it, I believe it's interior sample spacing. So I can increase this to 200 and 200 over here, and it will make it kind of larger. Okay, so it's not as dense. Again, same thing. I'm going to go back to 100. Why not? Okay. And right now I'm going to go ahead and type static meshes, static mesh spawner. And then again, if you remember, you have to go ahead and find mesh entries, turn that on, index, descriptor. And then now I'm just going to put a cone. Why not? Just find our friendly cone right here. Turn off the debugger. And there's my cone. Okay. And I'm going to turn this on. Let's see, go to transform points. I'm going to move this to 2. Let's add some rotation so it doesn't look so weird and boring. All right, so now we have our cone. Sorry, I have this in the way. And you see that it's flowing up the surface very nicely. Okay, now if I move this, theoretically this should move. There we go. It's moving. Okay, just move that there. Little pinch. Okay, so you'll see it's active. All right, and I can add the same type of noise filters as we did previously. But what I want to show you is how to subtract this spline. Again, let me go ahead and grab my spline. So spline actor right here. I want to have this intersect the trees, okay? And subtract the trees. Now, what will be useful is to make the trees a little bit more dense. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to remove this so I can get it as dense as possible. I'm just replugging that in. So it's like a wall of stuff. So when you see this subtraction, it makes a lot of sense that it is actually subtracting. And it's very easy, actually. All you need is a difference node. I think they're called nodes. Okay, and what I'm going to do is before it goes into the transform points, actually, I'm going to do it after it goes into the transform points. I think that will work. This will go in. Let's just turn this off. This will go in here, and then this will just connect back there. So it will work just fine. And so now this is going to want to take something in here to do a difference operation to it. Okay, and what is that difference operation? Right now it's set to minimum. And I want to set it to binary. And so binary, if we understand, 0, 1, yes, no, something, something else. Okay, so it's going to subtract off the other thing. And so from here, I'm going to want to select maybe the spline information. I don't think we need the transformation information, but we could, but I'm just going to move this in here. And now if I move this, it's subtracting it from the forest. Look at that. That's pretty fantastic, pretty powerful stuff. And you can do a lot with it, a lot of combinations. And so I can open up the forest just like that, kind of creating a pathway pretty easily. Okay, so I'm going to try to create a path that goes through here. And so I'm simply going to create another spline. So I'm just going to move this down here. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to my radian modeling mode, draw spline. And I'm just going to draw a spline that goes just like this. And now I'm going to accept, right? Same thing we did before. We're going to go and find tags. So I already have the tag in my search bar, and I'm going to click expand. I'm going to call this path. Back in the node editor, I'm going to find spline again, get data spline. So get data spline. Okay, I know I'm going to need a spline sampler, so I'm just going to get that loaded already. What we're going to want, we probably want it to project on the ground as well, the landscape. So I'm probably going to stick this in here in the N, because it can take multiples, and the projection target is the landscape, which is right there. And we'll output this over here. And now all we need is the information. So again, go back to actor filter and go to all world actors. Remember, you got to go to unbound, wherever unbound is. Oh, sorry, that's here. You got to come here and click unbound. Back here, I got the warning because it doesn't know what the tag is. And that's because my brain shifted somewhere else. So I'm just going to type path, because that was the name of the tag. All right. And so now in here, well, so now it's set on spline. Okay. And so you want to kind of create this thing called a bounds modifier. And so that's going to, I'll show you in a second what this does. And we'll just stick this here. I debug this. Can't really see anything, maybe a very small line. And so you should be able to change the bounds. Like right here, I'm going to change this to, let's call it like 100 so we could see it. Okay, I did something crazy in here. Hold up. Let me undo that. We're not going to use multiple projection nodes for that. We'll just stick this in normally. Sorry. Okay, we got a weird error. Anyway, we're back here. We're going to change this to, let's call it 100. And there we go. So we're getting kind of this line. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn or unplug this so we could just see what's going on. So this is kind of doing some weird stuff. Remember, we need to turn this on to unbound. It is. Okay, great. You want to go to spline sampler, and you want to change it from subdivision mode to distance. Okay, and that's going to fix this problem right here. So now that's all you need to do for it to look proper. And so if I change the bounds modifier, change it to 200, you'll see it's getting wider. And the minimum and max obviously is important. So minimum is on one side, maximum is on the other end, going on over here. So if I change this to 0 again, it won't expand anything on the other side of this line. But if I change it to 100, for example, go 100 units from the side of the line. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so now we have this projection problem again. And so now I'm gonna create a separate projection, not like the mistake I made before. So I'll just create the projection here. And sometimes it's good to see some of the mistakes people make because you learn from that. Okay, so do this, and then we're going to grab the landscape, and we'll take landscape and we will plug it in right here. And now we will go ahead and click a transform points, and we will plug this in, and we will actually be looking at this rather than the modifier. So there we go. Kind of working. It's doing something still kind of weird. I do have a hard time with this, to be honest, with the path, but it's kind of working, but not as good as I wanted to. But anyway, for now, let's just ignore that. So we do have a path in here. Okay, and for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to move this over here so it's not so awkward and weird. So I'm just going to move that slightly, and there's our path. It's still doing something strange over here. I don't know why. Anyway, we'll just leave it. And then from here, all you're going to want to do is, I'm not even going to want to generate any information. I'm just going to debug this. I'm going to turn this back on. And we're going to want to use a difference again. So we're going to want to find the difference. You might have to play around with where the difference node goes. But for me, I'm going to place the difference basically right after the transform, or right before the transform points. Again, it really just depends. So spline sampler, right here. I'm going to take this in the source, deselect that, put that in here. Okay, and then after the projection is where I want it to go into the difference. Actually, never mind. I'm going to place this here after the transform points in case I want to do something with transform points. Okay, and then again, you need to come here and change this from minimum to binary. And there we go. Kind of did that in a little bit different order than I did last time, but there we go. It does the same thing. Now we have this subtraction. Get a path in there. Quite nice. Yeah, pretty easy stuff. You can get a little squiggle in here on a little weird curvy road. So if I come down here in perspective, you're moving around and you create a little path before you get to the forest. Okay, so that's how that works. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And if you wanted to create an actual, let's call it geometry in here, all you need to do is type static mesh again. So I'm gonna grab the transform point, put it into here. I do have some geometry I can place in here. So I'm just gonna expand mesh scripter. I'm going to change this to, I'm going to find it here. There's no way I'm going to find that there. So Megascans 3D assets. I have, what do I have? This concrete median. Okay. And so I'm going to select this and I'm just going to drag it to the static mesh. And there we go. We got some weird thing happening over here. All you need to do is just delete that point and you could just expand this thing right here. Now, if you wanted to, you can add a point by right clicking and do add spline point here. Look, this isn't meant to rotate, so you got some weird stuff going on. And what you need to do here in transform points, I gotta zoom in. You just need to change the scale of this so it's proper. So maybe here, 100. Whoa, that's a lot. Change that to 0.1, 0.1. Okay, very small. You just gotta find the right size. It just takes a little bit of playing around with. I want to adjust this slightly so it's a bit smaller, so that works. But anyway, this has been long enough. Maybe you could do something like this. It's kind of like a favor path that works better. That way you kind of get rid of the intersection points. Man, I'm gonna get this out of the way, sorry. That's pretty much it. Creating a path like this, right? Where you have a field of cones or field of anything. It could be field of grass, field of flowers. And then you have a spline that's used to be generating all this stuff. And then you have a forest within this volume that's being subtracted by the spline. And then within the spline loop, there is a path that's being carved. So that's basically it. You learn a lot with this. It's pretty powerful if you start combining it. Again, using the projection to follow the landscape is actually another good way of using this. So if I move this volume up one more time, you'll see that you could get the trees to disappear back on the hills because now the volume is not intersecting. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below.